I'd like to call the July 20th Board of Commissioners meeting to order. Our first order of business would be the invocation by our manager, Ms. Sharon Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to come before you and conduct the business of Onslow County. Please bless all of those who have gathered here this evening. Father, we ask that you guide us as we navigate through these challenging times. We pray for our military, first responders, our law enforcement, and frontline workers who continue to serve our country with tremendous courage. May all we do this day bring you honor and glory. Now, with deep respect and reverence for the faiths, beliefs, and traditions of those gathered here tonight, hear us in a moment of silence. Amen.
Our Assistant County Manager, Mr. Ben Warren, will lead us in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to recognize our elected officials here tonight. I think Sheriff Hans Miller is here. I don't recognize anyone else. State Representative Phil Shepard. Thank you, sir, for being here. We ask that all in attendance please set your cell phones to silent or vibrate mode. The board offers the public one opportunity to speak during this meeting. Comments during the public comment period should be limited to 5 minutes, and may be on any item in which the Board of Commissioners has control. Citizen speakers will be acknowledged in the order in which they signed up to speak and will address all comments to the board as a whole and not to one individual commissioner. Speakers will address the board from the speaker's podium at the front of the room and will begin their remarks by stating their name and their address. Discussion between speakers and members of the audience will not be allowed. Public comment is not intended to require the board to answer any impromptu questions. Speakers are expected to be civil in their language and presentation. Any comments where the primary purpose is to promote a business or candidacy shall not be allowed. In accordance with the board's adopted rules and procedures, commissioners shall reserve responses, if any, for the commissioner's comment period on the agenda, which that'll be at the end of the meeting. Thank you for coming tonight. We have a large agenda tonight, and I will turn it over to Ms. Sharon Russell for the first section, which is approval of the items, or I'll turn it over, a motion to adopt the meeting agenda is in order.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next item is the consent agenda. Does any commissioner want to move anything from the consent agenda for discussion later?
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion to approve. To hear a second?
Second.
All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We're now at item 3, which is public comment, and I'll turn that over to our county manager, Ms. Russell. She's got an announcement to make.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, and we do have some citizens signed up this evening for our public comment period. Citizens have an opportunity to address the board for no more than 5 minutes per comment on any issue upon which the Board of Commissioners has control. We do have a very busy agenda tonight, and it's very important to be respectful to others and to limit your comments to 5 minutes. If you have something that you would like to bring to the attention of one of our commissioners, please contact us in my office tomorrow, and we can set up a time to hear your comments if they exceed that 5-minute level. When I call your name for public comment, if you have signed up, please approach, give us your name again, and give us your address. And again, please limit your comments to 5 minutes. Our first public comment period speaker is Mr. Steve Sako. If you would approach, please.
Shall I begin?
Absolutely, sir. Just state your name and address for us. Thank you.
My name is Steve Sako. I live at 301 Decatur Road over in Northwoods in Jacksonville. I'm here to speak tonight on my own accord as a private citizen in response to some of what I'm reading and hearing about the potential and hopeful removal or relocation of the Confederate monument in front of the courthouse. So I thought I'd say my comments for the record. I scribbled some notes down here on the way here, so I will be reading them to try to stay on track and not exceed 5 minutes. As again, I'm Steve Sako. I'm a retired lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps. I've been a resident here for 20 years after retiring from the Marine Corps after 34 years of service, and then 2 more years in the Merchant Marine and 1 year with the Afghan Army as a civilian advisor. So I do have some interest and a little bit of experience with military issues, particularly military history. So that makes that Confederate Monument Memorial of great interest to me. If anyone in this room or county has a reason to have that monument be removed or be offended by it, it should be me. Why? Well, I'm a current member and former camp commander of the Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War and have numerous ancestors who served in the federal forces during the period of 1861 to 65. My great-great-grandfather served in Company K of the 116th Ohio Volunteer Infantry. He was wounded, captured, imprisoned at Andersonville, and then re-imprisoned at Florence. He died of disease in 1865. Not only that, with him was his youngest son, who was only 16 years old, lying about his age to enlist. He was also wounded, captured, and died as a prisoner in Andersonville and Florence. So as I said, I should be offended, but I'm not offended. Not offended in the least. Nor do I think that monument or that memorial, whichever term you prefer to use, should be removed. Quite the contrary. I am proud to honor the local North Carolinians who served their country, just as my ancestors served their country, and I like to think just as I served mine. Approximately 1,400, and the figure is somewhat elusive, men and boys from Onslow County served in some capacity in the military forces of the Confederacy. Some were volunteers, most were volunteers, some were conscripts. Either way, they served. They went off for various reasons, but primarily to defend their homes, their families, and their county against what they perceived as invading federal forces. And in fact, the federal forces did invade. The vast majority served faithfully and with honor. Those who lived returned to Onslow County to resume their lives and become good citizens in that county. Those who didn't return now lie in graves in Pennsylvania, Maryland, West Virginia, and some at the bottom of the sea. The vast majority of these who served did not own slaves. Their blood flows in their descendants here in this county yet today. And in fact, and some of you folks that are sitting out there in the audience and maybe here on the commission, their blood flows in your veins. Do not respect their memory. And do not disrespect their memory, and do not disrespect their service. I'd like to touch on the legal aspects of that monument. And I'm not a lawyer, so please forgive any mistakes that I make. North Carolina laws pertaining to monuments, memorials, and parks in Article 100-2 and 2-1, and I will paraphrase, mentions that no war memorial, this was effective in 2015, 5 years ago, no war memorials, monuments, statues, or the such like, they cannot be removed from their present location either permanently or temporarily without the approval of the North Carolina Historical Commission. And I think we can all agree our governor did not follow that law in various instances. I would also mention that President Andrew Johnson pardoned all who served in the Confederate military in 1867, so they are not criminals. And number 3, in 1957, A bill in the United States Congress was presented and voted into law in 1958 as U.S. Public Law 85-425, Section 410. And it was approved on the 23rd of May, 1958.
Sir, the time has run out, sir.
All right. All CSA vets are equal to U.S. vets as to pensions, grave markers, etc. So, as such, they are my equal, but I'll never be their equal.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Seiko. Our second of 8 speakers, Chairman, is Mr. Steve Reed.
Steve Reed, 215 Country Club Drive. I'm here today to speak on the memorial as well. When I heard this, I had to sit and think and look into this a little bit. I researched the memorial, and only 2 years ago it was in front of this commission. That same question. When are we going to act like Americans and stop trying to erase history? History is there for a reason. If we don't learn from it, we're destined to repeat it. Someone could say the same thing about the emblem on the wall there. If that offends them, you're going to take it down? That stands for this whole county. That memorial stands for the soldiers of the Confederate Army. But it's because we can't forget where we've come from, what we've been through, how far we have come. Because when we forget the past, we are doomed to repeat it. And I'm just going to end with one thing. On that memorial, it says, lest we forget. We do not need to forget. We should never forget. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Our next speaker is Mr. Johnny Schuer. That works even better.
You should know me. I'm the mayor of Pony Farm Road.
And that's correct.
My name is Johnny Shiver. I live at 1731 Pony Farm Road, and I'm self-appointed mayor of that area. No power, no money, just the name, and that's it. I'm here to express my opinion the way this thing is going down. I heard through several sources that there was a move to have that monument moved from the county courthouse grounds. If I remember correctly, there was a soldier on that monument at one time, and it was taken down about maybe in the 60s, early 70s, and removed, and replaced was a bucket of small cannonballs, strictly for remembrance of our soldiers and our relatives that fought during that time for our country. And it means a lot to me because I've got a relative that's laying over in the grave that fought in the Civil War right here in Onslow County. We're not here to talk ugly about any race, any racial problem, anything of that nature. I've been all over this county obtaining signatures on our petition to tell you folks how we feel about this. And we've accumulated approximately 2,000 signatures that are opposed to any movement of that monument, strictly because of our heritage and our history. They're throwing history books, U.S. history books, in dumpsters out west in some of these other states. It don't mean anything anymore. Why would we ever let a small portion of people move into this country and rule it the way they are? I cannot understand. But it is really, really, I feel like a good thing if you would consider leaving it where it is, simply for our heritage and our history, if nothing else. It was placed there in 1957, believe it or not. I know you won't believe it, but I was still in high school at that time when it was originally put there. And, excuse me. And I graduated in 1960, and it's been there ever since, and I don't see anything wrong with it being there now. There's no statue on it, nothing to hurt anybody, nothing to make anybody feel bad other than our history. And you can't erase history. You can try to, and you can tear it down. But please, commissioners, if it be in your power to rule against having this monument moved from our precious courthouse square. Thank you for listening to me. Appreciate your hard work.
Thank you, Mr. Shiver, and sorry I butchered your name. And now it's time to butcher another name. Our fourth speaker is Miss Samantha Plokika.
It's Samantha Plosika. I'm of 313 Bordeaux Street, downtown. I'm also the executive director of the Children's Museum of Jacksonville, and I'm here tonight to address a statement that was made at your June 1st meeting regarding the budget for fiscal year 2021 and the allocation of funds to the Children's Museum of Jacksonville. Commissioner Buchanan said that we, the Children's Museum of Jacksonville, do not fully meet the requirements for tourism dollars, and that the museum is in a gray area as far as our eligibility, despite the fact that the budget team and Mr. McColl approved our request for funds based upon their criteria. I'm going to give you some background. In our first year of operation, which was from December 2018 to December 2019, we saw over 20,000 visitors. When visitors enter our building, we record their zip code to give us insight into the communities that we're reaching. We recorded guests from 18 different counties in North Carolina and from 21 different states, and this was all in our first year. Families were including our museum, located in Onslow County, in their trips to the beach and other local attractions. Additionally, many families from Wilmington, New Bern, and surrounding areas have chosen our museum for their children's birthday parties and day trips with friends. These visitors are certainly also stopping to have lunch, shop, and enjoy the area, subsequently benefiting the local economy and supplying tax revenue. If this does not contribute to tourism in Onslow County, then I would like to know what does. I understand that we received a fraction of the request for funding, and we understand that COVID has overturned many nonprofits' plans and goals for 2020. The issue at hand is that money that was slated for us was transferred to another entity because they were closed and needed support. But we are also closed, and we also need support. Before we were forced to close due to COVID, we were booked through from January through June for field trips. I was turning people away. And these were not just Onslow County schools, but surrounding counties as well. In the first 2.5 months that we were able to be open this year, we had already seen over 6,000 people. It is my sincere hope that the county commissioners will see our Children's Museum as something we're supporting and working with in the future to continue to bring tourism to Onslow County and our downtown community. And I have included a copy of the Association of Children's Museums 4 Dimensions of Children's Museum for you all to keep to show how important children's museums truly are to their communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Plosika. Our sixth of 8 is Mr. Rick New.
Ms. Russell, I think she wants to drop some paperwork off.
Hello, my name is Rick New. I live at 2120 Hines Farm Road, and I wasn't born in Onslow County, but I can never remember being any place but Onslow County. I was raised here, I went to school here, and I am adamantly opposed of removing the monument in front of the courthouse. I'm a student of history. That's part of history, and I worked hard to get the law passed that protects these monuments, not just this monument, but all monuments in North Carolina.
It's not just Civil War monuments, but it's every monument that has to do with historical monuments. I'm opposed to removing the monument in front of the courthouse, and any other historical monument or marker is in Onslow County. And I know there's a lot of you all up there that are prior law enforcement personnel, and if you vote to take this monument down, you will be violating the law unless you go through due process. The law was put in place to keep things from happening on a knee-jerk reaction. And so I'm adamantly opposed to any removal of the monuments in Onslow County that y'all have jurisdiction over. Like I said, not just this monument, but every monument and historical marker in Onslow County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. New. Our next speaker is Mr. Landon Simmons.
Hey, my name's Landon Simmons. I live at 133 Foggy River Way. The Onslow Confederate War Memorial needs to stay right where it is. There are other memorials around the Confederate War Memorial, such as the World War I and II plaque on the old courthouse, right there by the doors when you walk in. Commissioners, most Americans are tired of the tearing down and removing of our history throughout America. It's just getting old. Future generations will come after my generation's memorials, such as the Iraq War. I'm still in the Marine Corps, been overseas. Future generations will come after my memorials. Why? Because in every war, something's always ugly attached to it, normally land and money. I'm asking that the commissioners set a precedence to keep our memorials in place. I pay taxes in Onslow County, and I don't want my money going towards removing any historical monument. I respect other people's heritage and monuments as well. I honor my Confederate ancestors. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Our final speaker tonight that is signed up is Mr. Jeff Wenzel.
Commissioners, it's good to be here tonight. My name is Jeff Wenzel, and I'm actually the official mayor of Holly Ridge, North Carolina. So it's good to be here tonight. Although technically I wasn't elected, I was appointed, so there's a little technicality there. But it's great to be here with you guys tonight. I'm here to talk about the exciting things that are happening in Holly Ridge. Just a recent news article had stated that Holly Ridge is the second fastest growing town in North Carolina, and that should be exciting for all the Onslow County. We are really developing the Camp Davis Industrial Park. I've actually relocated my business there. My business is much smaller, but my business is located there, and many other businesses are also relocating there or starting up fresh. And I'm excited about the agenda item for the public hearing tonight for 4B, for the Economic Development Incentive Agreement for Atlantic Seafood Company. And I'm excited that we're getting this done and for having a company that is just on a neighboring county going to be moving its business to Onslow County and bringing a very big tax revenue. So I'm hearing some rumblings that it possibly won't be discussed tonight, but I'm here tonight. I would love for you guys to take this up for action and to consider this. And Chairman Bright, I'm looking forward to our groundbreaking in the Camp Davis Industrial Park this Friday for Crete. So thank you guys.
Thank you, Mr. Wenzel. Mr. Chairman, that is our final speaker for tonight's public comment period.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on now to item 4, which is public hearings, and we have several of those. So I will now turn it over to our county manager, Ms. Sharon Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We do have 7 public hearings this evening. Our first public hearing involves the sale of home health and hospice, and I will now call Sherry Slater up to the podium to give a staff introduction.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. At its May 18th, 2020 regular board meeting, the Board of Commissioners passed a resolution with the intent to sell home health and hospice. An RFP, request for proposals, was put out, and 7 proposals for the purchase of the county asset were received. According to the general statute, we have to make those proposals available for public review for 10 days prior to this public hearing. Those proposals have been available to the public since the 10th of July, and we've had them available in the clerk's office to review for the public, and we are here this evening for the public hearing, and I'm happy to answer any questions after we hear from anyone who signed up.
Thank you so much, Ms. Slater. At this time, I will open the public hearing regarding the sale, the potential sale of home health and hospice. We have had no one sign up this evening for the public hearing. So at this time, I will close the public hearing, and this item is now available for the Board of Commissioners to discuss.
I believe this is a great deal for us. It's a win-win situation for both the public and for us and for the community, and I would make the motion to approve it.
Second.
We do not need
Action.
action this evening, sir. Thank you.
All right. I think it's a good deal.
Do we
Ms.
need to
Slater,
read the proposals, or?
We do not, but if you want to discuss the proposals, or if you have any questions for Ms. Slater, we can have that discussion. We're still in the period of review, and this will be brought before the board again in August.
Ms. Slater, can you talk about, I guess, the responses that we received to the RFP, and especially how that would relate in terms of transferring current clients and then also our employees in that division?
Certainly, yes, sir. We did receive 7 proposals, and we are currently exploring one of those proposals, and we'll bring that information back to the commissioners. Each of the proposals was required to include information on continuing employment for the staff, continuing the caseload, in other words, accepting the patients that are in our current caseload. So those would be the elements that would be required in any successful candidate. So the company that we are currently exploring has those elements in their proposal. They are offering continued employment to our staff. They are accepting the patient load that we have. They also offer a significant percentage, significant by industry standards, of indigent or charity care. So those are all things that are included. As a condition of the sale, they must also have an office in Onslow County. They must be local and have part of their business actually exist here in Onslow County. So they would have a business locally, not just wherever their other offices exist. They would have a presence here in Onslow County as well.
The bids are public record, aren't they?
Yes, sir, they are. Would you like?
Can you, for the sake of
Certainly.
just go over the top bid that we had and?
So we received 7 bids, Onslow County did. The lowest bid was $75,000. The highest of the 7 bids was $3,250,000.
That's all I have. Do we just accept the bids, and then we'll schedule another meeting to accept whatever bid?
Yes, sir. We just needed to have a public comment or a public hearing available. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Slater.
Thank you.
Our next public hearing involves the Economic Development Incentive Agreement for Atlantic Seafood Company, and Mr. Brett DeSelms is going to give staff background.
Good evening, Commissioners. The proposed agreement with Atlantic Seafood Company would require Atlantic Seafood Company to relocate its business to Onslow County and increase the tax base by an estimated $5.1 million. Atlantic Seafood Company intends to construct a new 62,500 square foot refrigerated facility and bring 48 jobs to the Onslow County location. The average annual wage of its employment or of its business would be $70,000 for each employee. it is required that the business be in full operation on or before December 31st of 2021. If Atlantic Seafood Company meets its obligations under the proposed agreement, the county would provide up to $25,050 per year for 5 years, starting in January 2022 and ending in January 2026. I'm happy to answer any questions that the commissioners may have.
Thank you, Mr. DeSelms. At this time, I will open the public hearing in regard to the Economic Development Incentive Agreement for Atlantic Seafood Company. We have had 2 people sign up for the public hearing. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes. The first speaker is Mr. Mark Sutherland. If you would approach the podium, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Thank you for allowing me to speak on behalf of the Board of Directors of Jacksonville Onslow Economic Development. My name is Mark Sutherland. I'm the Executive Director. My office is at 1099 Gum Branch Road. Our board's expressing their unanimous support for this project, and your staff and some of the directors have dedicated hundreds of hours to bringing it to fruition over the past 6 months. JOED's mission, quite simply, is to carry out actions that create prosperity for the county, and we calculate prosperity in terms of 3 outcomes: individual wealth, business resilience, and a strong tax base. This project that you're considering achieves resoundingly all 3 of those. The first one I want to mention is about wages. I mean, it's no secret Onslow County has the 6th lowest wages in the state, and that impairs our ability to recruit companies who are looking first for a skilled workforce. It's hard to retain skilled workers when we have low wages. 48 jobs at an average of $70,000 apiece is the highest wage project that JOED in its 50 years of existence has ever brought for for your consideration or recruited without incentives. It's a big deal. It's over twice the county average. They come with benefits, and I want to point out that this family-owned company, for the last 7 decades, the average tenure of their employee is 24 years. So that may be one of the reasons. With regard to the tax base, our tax base would have had to grow. Tax base per capita would have had to grow $13,000 for every man, woman, and child in the county over the past 10 years to keep up with inflation, but it actually went backwards $800. So instead of growing the tax base by $3.1 billion, we went backwards. So we're going to have to address that as a hedge against future tax increases. So the tax is going up 16% over the last 10 years. If we don't want that to happen again, we're going to have to keep finding companies like this that'll come in and invest not just in property and improvements, but in higher wages that support sales tax revenue that help our businesses in the county. So, Mr. Chairman, our board wholeheartedly endorses Atlantic Seafood's request. We recommend without hesitation that the board follow the town of Holly Ridge's lead in supporting this project. And just a reminder to the folks that I want to emphasize, this is not a grant. This is a performance agreement. This requires a company coming in here to achieve certain things in order to do its part with the agreement with the county. So, thank you very much for your time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Sutherland. Our next citizen who's signed up to speak during the public hearing for Economic Development Incentive Agreement for Atlantic Seafood Company is Mr. Jeff Wenzel.
Jeff Wenzel, 315 Rosebud Lane, Holly Ridge, North Carolina. It's me again. I'm a local business owner in Holly Ridge, and one of the reasons that the town council chose me to fill out the term of our mayor who had to resign, what I was told was to sell the town, And I was handed this particular deal, which was in the process, and so I was basically given 3/4 of this project already completed. And so what I want to do is explain to you what I feel is the philosophy for the growth of Holly Ridge. See, Holly Ridge, when people live there, and we have military and we have retired and we have working people, but the working people don't work in Holly Ridge. They go to Jacksonville, or they go to Wilmington, Hampstead, or Topsail. And if they go south, I personally live 3/10 of a mile from the Pender County border. And so we are losing people, residents, they are working outside of our town. And so we don't have businesses that operate businesses that can cater to people that work there each and every day. So bringing in a size of a company like this with 47 full-time employees, we will now have to generate new small businesses to be able to meet the demands of getting their laundry cleaned, more banks. We need a grocery store. I'm actively trying to recruit a grocery store. My wife currently goes to Surf City for all of our groceries. That's a leak. And so we need a grocery store right here on the edge of Onslow County. And I think a Piggly Wiggly would be great. So if anyone knows anyone with a Piggly Wiggly, that would be a great, and I have 60 acres of land I know that's available right on Highway 17 that would be great for a grocery store. Holly Ridge, the town has also given an incentive as well, a performance incentive as Mark had said. And so we are vested in this. And the reason why we are providing an incentive is we realize that growth is important to Holly Ridge, but also to Onslow County. This is a slam dunk. This should be an easy approval. We have deadlines. Atlantic Seafood has deadlines. So let's move forward and let's get this done. Thank you.
That concludes our speakers for this public hearing. At this time, I will close the public hearing for the Economic Development Incentive Agreement for Atlantic Seafood Company. And at this time, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, this item is available for your discussion.
I'll make a motion to approve the agreement.
Second.
I have a problem with it. I have a problem with something that is thrown at us all at one time. I have a lot of questions for the applicant. The applicant is not here.
That's right.
And I think that the applicant should be asked those questions. I don't think that we got, right now it's $125,000 for 5 years. That's taxpayers' money. That's not money we just throw away. That's money we have to be careful of. We have to be very conservative with our money. And I'd like to know more answers. I had a lot of questions for this individual applicant, but I think this thing was pushed down us real fast, real quick, is what happened here. And so I'm not going to vote for it. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
I just want to say one thing. I talked to Commissioner Buchanan beforehand, and I absolutely agree with Commissioner Buchanan on his assessment, because I have questions too, and I'm not in the mood to spend taxpayers' money without those questions being answered, period. So I applaud your efforts, and I do support Commissioner Buchanan's stance, and I'm with him on that one.
If the company meets the obligations of the agreement and receives a $25,000 incentive, what net increase do we still get in property tax from that company each year? Is there still a net increase of property tax, and what would that be?
I'm not sure exactly what the property tax would be on the building that they're talking about. I think that it's a wash for the first 3 years, but I would have to check the numbers.
It says a 62,500 square foot facility.
Yep.
That's pretty big, isn't it?
It is. I don't know that we have an accurate valuation of it at this time, but we can check with tax and see exactly what those numbers are. I don't remember us seeing any firm numbers on that.
I mean, I think in the agreement, it's talking about having to expand the tax base of that property by a little over $5 million, and that's something that we're going to be able. It expands our tax base, and we're able to continue to tax in perpetuity at that point, as long as that value is maintained. I think we had some speakers who were here. Maybe they'd be available to answer some of those questions if we've got more questions. But I think Mayor Wenzel said it best. It's a slam dunk.
Mr. Chairman, the owner of this company is in the food processing business, and they do business between New York and Florida all during the week, and they're traveling, and they're very concerned about the COVID-19 situation.
This is an unusual situation that they can't afford for their people to be infected and to lose business because of COVID-19. Now, we've had this proposal in our hands for several months now. It's a obvious gain for the county. If you do the calculations at 70 and a half cents per hundred, a $5.1 million building gains us $35,955 a year in property taxes. Of that $35,000, we're going to give for the first 5 years, we're going to rebate $25,000. After the end of 5 years, that building is still going to be there, and somebody's still going to be paying $35,955 a year in property taxes, and maybe much more than that if values continue to appreciate. So I can't see any reason why we can't vote on this tonight. I hate that the owners weren't able to be here, but we have to consider their situation with their business. They can't risk having to shut down their business because somebody gets sick with COVID-19. This is an easy deal. It's something that we've been looking at for months, and there's no reason why we can't get this over with tonight.
It might be that you've been looking at it for months, but none of us have seen it for these last few months. I haven't seen anything. Here's one of the things. The agreement says that the company will bring jobs to Onslow County. Will those 48 jobs paying over $70,000 be advertised, or are they already employees of the company? If they're already employed, do they reside in Onslow County? Will the follow-up that we are receiving from the reports on Section 8 of this agreement, who will handle Section 8? Mr. Brenton, if you can answer that question, because the ABC building that we have out here in the park, we got in trouble with that one, and it cost the county a lot of money because the JOED did not do their follow-up and make sure that the documents were filled, and I think you handled that case for us.
Yes, sir. The way we've structured this agreement with that in mind, Vice Chairman, would be that rather than forgiving debt, which was what was occurring in the last transaction, this would be we would have to stroke a check every January. So in order to stroke that check, they would have to bring in the compliance. And I drafted this agreement rather than the last one was we gave them an incentive, and then every year a portion of that was wiped out or forgiven if they brought in the documents.
Gun shy because JOE did not hold up their bargain to do the paperwork, and then these commissioners, all 7 of us up here, had to come to a negotiation that you did.
Yes, sir.
And we didn't get all the money that they owed us. We only got a portion of the money they owed us. So
That's
that
correct.
was some more taxpayers' money that was involved. I'm just gun shy when it comes to this. I just have some questions that I need answered. And this was not, we haven't looked at this for 5 or 6 months. I haven't seen the documents until last Wednesday.
Yes, sir, I understand.
And that's the catch that I have. And I'll stop there. And if you want me to, I'll call the question there.
It's my understanding that
We already got a motion and a second.
it's my understanding that this company will also sign local contracts with fishermen from Sneed's Ferry or other surrounding areas. Is that correct, Mr. Sutherland? That this company will seek to sign contracts with local fishermen, shrimpers, to process what they catch as well?
They already do. They will just be closer. It will streamline their supply chain activities with our local fishermen.
So we've got a motion and a second.
Hear from Commissioner Foster on this
So we got a motion and a second, so
for approval.
for approval. So we've got to vote on that tonight.
And my question for legal is if the motion carries, then it'll be a done deal. But if the motion doesn't carry, does that kill the whole deal?
For the night, it can be brought back up at a future meeting.
What has to take place in order for it to be brought back up?
We had to put it back on the agenda.
Okay.
Because we've had the public hearing. The statute requires a public hearing before you give any public incentive, and that public hearing has occurred tonight.
And I guess I'd caution the board in the sense of what kind of message that sends when we're trying to engage in these partnerships, when we're trying to bring in industry, when we're trying to work with these partners, and we've got something on the table talking about a $5.1 million expansion to our tax base to make someone who's engaged in business insert that level of uncertainty into a situation. I mean, that's just, I think it would be potentially toxic to our reputation on that front.
And I think with a second and a motion and a second, I think we've got ourselves in a position that if we vote this down, Atlantic Seafood may pull their deal off the table. So I think we're in a position now that we've got to
I think just
make a decision.
just for clarification, Mr. DeSelms, we're not going to write them a check until they write us a check.
Right.
Is that correct?
That's
They're going to pay their taxes, and then we're going to give them some kind of part of that back.
Well, yes, sir. It requires them to pay their taxes by December 31st, and then we would not have to give the incentive until January 15th.
So there's no risk at all for Onslow County? Zero. Okay. I'm finished.
Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second for approval. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
We've got two.
Two.
Motion carries. Okay, we'll move on.
Mr. Chairman, our next public hearing is for rezoning case PREZ 2020-0007. And I will call on Ms. Jessica Rue to give a staff introduction.
Thank you. All right, we have two rezoning requests this evening. The first one is a request to go from residential 8M to highway business. This property is owned by Mr. Jefferson Drum, who is here this evening. It's located in Jacksonville, and the parcel totals 1.68 acres. We have public water in the area with private wastewater, fire service provided by Half Moon, which is right across the street from this property. And this is located on Gum Branch Road, and this specific section is part that will be impacted by the very elusive at this point TIP project U4906. The current zoning is in the blue triangle. That's the property we're discussing. It is R8M. They've requested to go to the highway business. You can see on the zoning map here that there's highway business just south of this parcel already. The aerial shows you there are currently 2 mobile homes on site. The fire station is across the street with a church to the south. Our R8M district is a medium density residential district. The purpose is for single family residential and also mobile homes. And the proposed request is to go to highway business, which of course would accommodate more business type uses. Our comprehensive plan has this area in rural residential. The planning board, despite that, did find this was reasonable due to the growth trends taking place along Gum Branch Road, as well as the fact there is already highway business right in this exact area. And they voted unanimously at their meeting on June 4th to recommend approving this. There were no public comments on this proposed rezoning. The planning board did make one comment themselves that they would like Mr. Drum to be aware that there is a road widening project happening at some point in front of this property as he would potentially plan for future development here. And that's the conclusion of the staff report on this.
Thank you, Ms. Rue. At this time, I will open the public hearing for rezoning case PREZ-2020-0007. And I will call on the applicant, Mr. Jefferson Drum, if he would like to make a statement to the commissioners.
Chairman, Vice Chairman, Commissioners, thank you for taking time to hear the case. I've been in Onslow County. My name is Jeff Drum, 4570 Gum Branch Road. I live not even a quarter mile down from this existing property. I'm an existing business owner for many years here on the corner of Gum Branch, which is the Aloha mini storage complex that's been there for years. I'm sure all of y'all have been right by there. It's kept immaculate. It's very clean. I'm proud of that. It keeps my business full. We generate a lot of income for the county, and we're very established with the military as well as the public sector in that area. And we've been serving them for years, and we appreciate another opportunity to do the same. Right down the street, I was able to purchase another piece of property which has 400 foot of road front on there. And my plan is to put, hopefully if it's approved by y'all, I'm gonna put a commercial building there as well that will cater to some more small businesses that are looking to expand in the Gum Branch area. The growth of the area has expanded in such a rate that we need the opportunity for business people like myself who are small business owners that want to still be involved in Onslow County and have the opportunity to grow with the county as it is. I'm looking to put the building that's kind of equivalent to, if y'all are familiar with the one that's on Ramsey Road that the side's built with the pizza parlor down there, just giving you a visual opportunity to kind of visual what I'm going to put there. That way it's not going to be something, detriment to the area. It's going to be eye-appealing. It's going to be right across from the Potter's House Church and the fire department, which there's some commercial building already around there. I foresee the few houses that are left in that area also being probably sold and bought up and expanded as the growth expands with the county. So I just want to take a minute. Hopefully you'll entertain the idea. I enjoy Onslow County and look forward to bring my family and anybody else that wants to come in here and get involved in the county because it's a nice place to live and a good place to raise your kids. So thank you for a few minutes of your time.
Thank you, Mr. Drum. No one else has signed up for tonight's public hearing for this rezoning case. At this time, I will close the public hearing, and this is now available for the Board of Commissioners to discuss.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Move on to item D.
Our next public hearing is for the rezoning case PREZ-2020-0008, and I will call on Ms. Rue once again, our Director of Planning and Development, to give a staff background.
Thank you. This rezoning request is to go from RA to highway business. The applicant is Rebecca Koshik. Her and Michael Koshik are the property owners. This is located in Richlands, and the property is just under a half acre. We have public water and sewer in this area, fire service provided by Rhodestown, and our capacity is in good shape on Richlands Highway. You can see here the RA zoning. You can also see right below there on this image the trend of highway business coming along Richlands Highway here. There's currently a single-family home with a home occupation that exists in the home on site. And as we know, our RA district is a low-density agricultural district. Of course, the request is to move to highway business. This is in line with our comprehensive plan and fits the AF classification. The planning board did discuss this and decided it was reasonable due to that highway frontage. And they recommended to you unanimously to consider favorably this rezoning request. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Rue. And if the applicants, Mr. or Ms. Kochik, are present, they can come up and give an applicant statement. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Kochik. I currently have a salon. We renovated the house, and we've been there for about 6.5 years. So we were just going to make it more marketable by rezoning it to highway business.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. At this time, no one else has signed up for this public hearing, so I will close the public hearing for rezoning case PREZ-2020-0008 and turn it over to the Chairman and Board of Commissioners for discussion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion to approve signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All All opposed? Motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take about a 10-minute break. Be back in 10 minutes. I'd like to call the meeting back to order, and we'll resume on with the meeting under Section E.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Our next public hearing is for rezoning case PREZ-2020-0006, and I will turn this over to Ms. Jessica Rue for staff recommendation.
Thank you. So we have labeled this as a rezoning because that's how we enter this in our system. But really what this is a comprehensive assignment of zoning districts to properties that were formerly in the city of Jacksonville ETJ, and the city of Jacksonville took action on April 21st at their meeting to basically relinquish any rights they have to planning responsibilities in these areas and give them back to the county. So at that point in time, the city zoning districts were removed, and we now need to assign our zoning districts to these areas, otherwise they would be unzoned. And the county now has responsibility for these about 1,100 acres additional for the permitting, the enforcement, the zoning, land use items of that nature. So I know you all are familiar with this. I feel like for some people watching at home and other people in the audience, a short story on what an ETJ is. An ETJ is you have your municipal corporate limits, and then there's another line drawn around there, up to a mile in size, where the city can decide that they want to apply their land use and their zoning in those areas. And this was kind of a tool that was very popular and used a lot. In North Carolina, we got it in the 1950s, and it was a way to address all of the out-of-control growth that was happening after World War II. And so there's still these areas in the ETJ, and as you are aware, over the last few years, they've been giving up more and more of it and giving that responsibility to us. And really what it was used for was back when people were expanding infrastructure and water and sewer and things like that, it was a way to have smart growth and plan as you were growing and expanding. The city has said, in these areas, we no longer want to exercise our land use rights there, and we want to give them back to the county. And so that's where we are tonight. And so what our staff has done is taken these parcels, there's close to 300 of them, and taken and looked at what was on the ground, looked at how it was zoned before, what makes sense, and took our zoning districts and applied them on the map. So the city notified and had a public hearing that said they were taking this action. Once they did that in April, we had these maps ready. This has been ongoing since last year and delayed because of COVID-19. And we mailed out postcards directing the parcels that were directly impacted to go onto our website and look at maps, and invited them to call us or email us if they had any questions. Did something look wrong? Do you maybe have a project planned here we don't know about, and the zoning we gave you might not make sense? And we went through that process. And so that happened in May. And then on July 1st, we sent 2 different sets of letters. One letter went out to people directly impacted. That means you are now going to have a county zoning district, and you will now come to the county with your planning and zoning needs. We also sent another set of letters out that went out to people within 300 feet of those parcels. Because by our zoning ordinance that we have, when we assign a zoning or give something a new zoning, even though it's not a rezoning really, we thought it was the proper thing to do to notify those people within 300 feet. And so we're required to mail out those letters at least 10 and not to exceed 24 days before a public hearing when things like this take place. And so we actually had to send that letter twice because the first letter had an error on it, but it was still within that time frame. So that brings us to where we are this evening. And I covered all of this already. So where are these areas? There are 4 areas. There's an area in Southwest, there's 3 sections in North Jacksonville, and then there's 2 sections along Piney Green Road. And the zoning districts that have been applied, and these maps have been online. There's also large versions of the maps that land use staff has been discussing with people out in the hallway. You'll notice a lot of these are residential districts. The city of Jacksonville has kind of given us most of this is established neighborhoods that's already built out, where we would be doing more permitting for change-outs in perhaps neighborhood concerns than we would be doing actually new construction permitting. There's very few commercial properties here, so that's why you see most of these districts that have been applied are residential. If you're looking at the county as a whole, the areas in yellow are these areas that I just referenced. You'll see Piney Green on the right, the North Jacksonville area on the top, and the Southwest area down on the left. And so we've been getting questions on, well, they keep giving up more and more of their ETJ. What do they even have left in their ETJ? If you look at this map, this is the city of Jacksonville in pink. Everything in the white is in county except where you see the stripes. That is the ETJ that still exists for the city of Jacksonville. So they certainly haven't given up all of their ETJ, even though it seems like every couple of years we keep being asked to do this. And so the planning board did meet. There was no public comment at planning board on this issue at all. Our staff went through and explained the methodology that they use to apply the zoning districts into the property that we are now responsible for, and we did our best to keep continuity. So setbacks and coverage and uses and those types of things were as similar to the zoning that they had as we could possibly get. And they are recommending to you a favorable adoption of these new zoning maps for these impacted areas. And that concludes my staff report.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rue. At this time, I will open the public hearing for rezoning case PREZ-2020-0006. And we have 6 people signed up this evening to speak during the public hearing. I will call your name. Please approach the podium and limit your comments to 5 minutes. Our first speaker is Ms. Renee Ferguson.
Good evening. I'm Renee Ferguson. I reside at 404 Raintree Road. I am a tenant there, which puts me in a little bit different position. I don't get updates, but yet I am impacted. I happened to find out about the meeting through the July 1st letter. It was addressed to my parents, and I opened it in error. That's how we found out about any of this. I had no idea what an ETJ was or what have you. I still don't know what is going to happen in that I'm a 300-footer to an area that I think is woodlands. What is actually going to happen to us? I have a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old that I'm trying to bring up in that area and trying to decide, are we buying this house? Are we selling this house? What are we doing? So that sort of information is good to know for people that aren't on the tax registers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ferguson. Our next citizen to speak is Mr. Tom Orengia.
Very good. Good evening, gentlemen.
I appreciate the time with you with the board today. My name's Tom Orengia. I reside at 1158 Kennedy Road. I own Jasmine Mobile Home Park there. I got a lot of questions answered, so I can cut this short during the break. The problem is, I'm still in the ETJ. The Smith family started my park way back in the early 50s and 60s. City of Jacksonville will not let me rework those 1970 trailers in there for the purpose of helping people get back on their feet who have run into whatever reason, losing their jobs or whatever. I'm very proud to say that I've got 7 people since 2016 that have come into my park, were able to rent from me, have a decent place to live, get back on their feet, and have bought houses in Onslow County. And they have also referred people to my park to do the same thing again and again. I've got one boy in there that because of medical reasons, he can only ride a bicycle, but he rides from my park to Western Boulevard every day just to make his living. He cannot afford high rent property in Onslow County. My whole park is not set up for me to get rich. The purpose I took that park is I fought for 55 years in my trade to make enough money to buy a piece of property that I could do something in Onslow County. My family has been here since the early 50s when Gum Branch Road was still a dirt road. That's how far we go back. Well, not trying to pat myself on the back, but I have been homeless at one time. That's why I came back to Onslow County and got back on my feet. Mr. Foster knows that story very well, I'm sure. However, I did it. I brought it back. I also helped get Trillium to come into Onslow County to help other people. They used my park to help do that to get it started. My question is this: why can I not remove old trailers that I'm more than capable of repairing and bringing them up to standards at a much higher rate than what I can pull them out and replace them, and the city won't let me do it? Is there anything the county can do to help me get that done to keep people who are coming out of high school that can't afford that $1,000 a month property for rental and help them stay in Onslow County so we can help people like the ones you heard come in here tonight looking for the 48 people to put to work out there at Holly Ridge, to help these other places in Jacksonville where they need some decent people to work. I'm providing a service, and I'm getting kicked in the teeth every way I turn. And everybody up and down Kennedy Road is getting the same thing because we're into ETJ. I need some help. I'd appreciate it if you could figure out some way to help me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Mr. David Martin.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak before you today. I live in 947 Lynchburg Drive over in the Country Club Estates neighborhood. We have a very diverse neighborhood in that we have a mixture of old and young, but majority of our neighborhood is older people. Currently, there's a dirt pit behind us that's wanting to resume operations, and they'll probably be coming, do you get permission to do it? Part of the problems we have with it is there's a lot of dust that comes from it. We have people who are on oxygen who live directly adjacent to that dirt pit. They wet the road down every now and then. I've called before previously when they operated it, but for whatever reason they got shut down. Well, I'd call, they'd wet the road, but then you'd have to call back again. The noise starts before 6 o'clock in the morning, and it goes to well after 6 or 7 in the evening. All you hear is the beeping from the bulldozers and everything operating. Your quality of life in that neighborhood is greatly diminished. You can't sit on your porch and just enjoy a quiet evening. It's not just during the week, it's on the weekends. And that's not even counting just the noise from the heavy equipment. With the dirt pit, we don't know if they've been in doing any water table discussions or I guess to see how that's gonna affect the area. I do know that as they discharge the water from that dirt pit, that pump goes 24 hours a day. You can't sleep in the spring or the fall with your windows open. All you're gonna hear is that running from that pump that they have there. As they discharge the water from there, several of the neighborhoods have low-lying areas behind their house. We have a mosquito problem over there. If we have hurricanes, the question is, if that dirt pit fails, how's that gonna affect us? Currently, When we had the last one, the neighborhood was cut off. You were on an island, you could not get out because there's a low dip there and the water was high for several days. You're cut off. And if we have that dirt pit failed, that will greatly affect us even more in that area. We realize that people have to make a living, and I don't care what somebody does to their property, but when it starts infringing on our rights, our quality of life, that's just wrong. I realize the planning board may have said, we want to do this, this is okay. We never received any notification from the city when they were getting ready to do whatever at our location, our address. The first letter we got was the one that was that had the mistake on it from the county, which I guess, not through your fault, but we hadn't received any notifications. And if this continues, there's going to be a lot of people impacted adversely over there in that area. We just ask that, before you say, yes, we're going to let them resume that or give them a permit, I realize the planning board is busy, but it would be nice if they could go out into a neighborhood and see the impact that it's going to have. Because I know they're busy and they have a lot to do. It's easy to sit there in a map or whatever and make a decision on something. But until you come out there and you hear that noise, till you experience that dust that we have out there, you're kind of approving something you know nothing about. It's not just a matter of paper, it's a matter of people's lives out there. And we just ask that, before you make an approval, take the time to take a look at it for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Miss Mary Moore.
Good evening. I'm Mary Louise Pearson Moore, 1013 Greenway Drive, Jacksonville, North Carolina, 28546. To the chairman, the commissioners, I stand before you with questions about the letter that I received about the ETJ that I don't understand. Number one question, I do have 5. First question, what do that mean? Second question, what changes will be made? Third question, will the property tax go up or down? Fourth, what privilege will we have? Fifth, will we get a final letter about this meeting and explaining everything about ETJ? Because not only me, it's a lot of Piney Green. They didn't understand it. I told them I'll come and I'll ask questions. And all I'm asking for something in writing, explaining it to us what everything means and what we got to do, or if not, nothing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Mr. Paul Howard.
I want to thank you all for your time. Apparently out in the hallway, I found out that I never got a letter for this. Somebody called me and told me that ETJ was in our area, which I was unaware of. And I'm trying to figure out why we're in it. What do you all know that we don't know why we have to stay in it when I'm in the county? And what's trying to figure it out is, why are we staying into it? But they're telling me this meeting wasn't for me. It's for a different area. So my question was, I was never notified the first time. My family's been in Onslow County for a long, long time. My family started in Stump Sound and Holly Ridge and all. I've been on that street, 1154 Kennedy Road, since 1982. We started a trailer park. It was approved and put in. But now, just like the gentleman that talked a minute ago, they're saying they've got new regulations, you can't do this, you can't do that, and I'm trying to figure out why. You know, between the hurricanes and everything else, damage and whatever, it has put a burden on us. And more rules and regulations stifle anybody who's living here and been here. All it looks like is this is for more developers to come in and push us out. And like I said, I learned in the hallway, this was not for me, but this was the first time that somebody had told me there was a thing about the ETJ. I never got any letters for the other ones. And like I said, I've been there since 1982. My parents owned the property before I bought the property. I'm trying to figure out why. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Our next speaker and our final speaker for this public hearing is Mr. Mike Humphrey.
Good afternoon. My name is Mike Humphrey. I live at 1125 Clayton Humphrey Road. That was also my dad's address, my grandfather's address, my great-grandfather's address, and I can keep on going back longer than 1734. So we've been here a long time, and my daughter and my son are trying to build a house on our family farm. Half the farm's in the ETJ, half of it isn't. We go to get a building permit from the county. They said, you got to go to the city. Okay. We go to the city, permit, tax, whichever you want to call it. And they say, I want to talk to my representative at the city because, well, I'm giving the city my money. I should have somebody there I could talk to and express my situation. Well, they said there's nobody that represents our ETJ, so you see the kind of mess we're in. And then I get the letter saying part of you guys are getting out of the ETJ. I said, okay, that's got to be us. So I look in there, and we're not even on the list. So, and we've never got a letter from the city saying, we're going to have a meeting about, do you want to get out of the ETJ? So how do we go about getting, who represents us trying to get us off of the ETJ so that we don't have to pay the city tax/permit? So you see where I'm going there. We're just trying to do the right thing and get out of the ETJ. So any help that y'all could give us, we'd sure appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Humphrey. That is our last speaker signed up for this public hearing. So at this time, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, I will close the public hearing for rezoning case PREZ-2020-0006. And at this time, this issue is available for your discussion or for Ms. Rue to address some of the questions that were raised. Thank you.
I would like to make the motion, but I do have, I probably can explain some stuff along with Jessica, along with Commissioner Bright. Tim and I know exactly what this is all about. We've dealt with it for many years, but I'll make the motion.
A motion, and do I hear a second?
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Now, we opened it up for discussion and questions for staff, but I want, as part of the discussion or part of the request, I'd like for our planning department to get with the folks that's need definition on the extraterritorial jurisdiction, and to understand that if some of them didn't get a letter, that means that they're still in the city of Jacksonville ETJ. And I understand some of the complaints from the gentleman that spoke about that. And a lot of people that's in the ETJ does not want to be in the ETJ because they can't vote for the people that regulate them in the ETJ. So that was the whole contentious thing about the ETJ. But coming into, the city is turning that over to the county. So now the folks that are moving into the ETJ of the county will be subject to just the county's regulations, and you come to the county for permits, come to the county for inspections and so forth, but that's what it's about, and it's sort of complicated if you don't know, and the lines are so jagged and so cut up out there. I would have recommended that they take one of the highways, a major highway, and just draw a line down the center line and say, okay, everybody in the city ETJ is on one side and everybody in the county ETJ is on the other side, but that's not the way it is, and it looks like spotted all over everywhere. So I'd like for you to get with all the folks that's got questions about where they are and what we will be doing and what the city has been doing and how that'll affect them. But my only question to you is, if the part that the city is relinquishing to the county, are our regulations basically the same as what they've been in as far as what they can build and getting permits, except they'll be dealing with the county instead of the city?
The zoning districts were applied almost identically. Like I said, we did our best. Of course, we don't have the exact same zoning districts. The city and the county call them different things, but we looked at, like I said, setbacks and lot side and the uses, and we applied them that way. And they went through section by section and applied those. And we did get quite a few calls from people when they got the letter, asking clarifying questions and sending emails. Why am I getting this letter? Particularly because we tried to go the extra mile and notify people that were around the zoning district, which I believe the city only notified the exact impacted property owners and not the surrounding areas like the letters that we sent out. But we are absolutely happy. I have Mr. Austin Brinkley is here this evening. He's our chief zoning officer, and Ms. Angie Manning is here. She's our land use administrator. We have large maps out in the hallway that are much easier to read than computer screen maps, and they'll be happy to meet with anyone in the hallway after we get through our subdivision public hearing this evening and answer their questions.
The one key thing, they're asking the question, why did they wind up in the ETJ? And I can tell them why. The municipalities, the cities, they brought you into the ETJ so that they could annex you sooner or later if they had all the utilities in place for you, and then they would bring you into the city of Jacksonville or Swansboro or Richlands or Holly Ridge, and that's why ETJs came about. But then the state came out with a law said it had to be voluntary annexation, so they can't annex you anymore by their authority. So what you have now is these ETJs are giving them up because they can't annex them and they can't get voluntary annexations.
Did I hear, sorry, some of the questions was, some of the folks that spoke are still in the ETJ.
Yes.
And their question is, why were they skipped? I know that's probably the city's decision.
So unfortunately, we can't decide which parts we would like to take. The city is solely responsible for that. And so if there was a desire to have those questions answered, they would need to approach the city of Jacksonville.
To the city. I understand where Mr. Humphrey's coming from, where half of it remains, half his property remains, other half is out, and he's dealing with who to go to and what to do. So I appreciate, as the chairman, to be able to speak with the folks that have the questions. And I think Mr. Martin is really concerned about the dirt pit or what's going on there on the backside of Lynchburg and what's the next step for him. So I think if we can get together with them and have those conversations, and Ms. Moore in the back just wants answers to be able to go back to her community and explain what's happening. So they've got people that'll be able to answer those questions for you tonight, I believe. And we got to let Mr. Martin know that, you know, we thank him for his service. He's retired from the North Carolina Highway Patrol, so that's a huge part, and a thank you to him and his commitment.
It's really the only practical impact to people who are removed from the ETJ is that instead of having to go to the city for their permits, now they're going to come to the county.
They get to come see me and my wonderful staff instead of going to City Hall. Yes, sir.
Right.
There you go.
And Ms. Rue, just to put it on the record, this doesn't change anybody's property taxes.
That is correct.
That's right.
You've always been in the county. You've just been regulated by the city. And as I was pointed out, this is a really strange area of the law. Yes.
Well, I will reiterate what Vice Chairman Buchanan said. Years ago, the cities were looking at properties that were being readily developed in 1 mile jurisdiction of the town and the city, sometimes in a satellite. But they were looking at those annexation properties and those partials and subdivisions to build their tax base. And then some years back, I think Representative Shepherd was here earlier, if some of you may have seen him, but he was some of the folks that was involved in the legislation that was passed that any annexation now would have to be voluntary, or at least 51% of the population would have to vote for being annexed. So now, since the city, and the reason this come about, since the city says we can't annex you anymore, we don't have the authority to annex you, so now we're going to give it to the county and let the county take it over. So that's basically what it is in a nutshell. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I think that pretty much explains it. So, any further? We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we'll move on to section F.
Yes, our next public hearing is for the flood ordinance text amendment, case ZTA-2020-0003. And again, I will turn it over to Ms. Jessica Rue for the staff background.
Okay, thank you. This is a quick text amendment. Just to give you background, in May we adopted the new flood ordinance that we were required to adopt in conjunction with the new flood maps that became effective on June 19th. And every 5 years we have an audit for our participation in the community ranking system, which is the program that's voluntary that we participate in and have standards for, and they make sure that we're applying our flood ordinance correctly. And when we went through that audit, there was a couple of suggestions for us to be able to get the full credit from having our 2-foot freeboard, and these are just amendments that add clarifying language that were recommended by our auditor, so we can get those points for our CRS.
And at this time, thank you, Ms. Rue. I will open the public hearing. And no one has signed up this evening for this public hearing for the flood ordinance text amendment, case ZTA 2020-0003. So at this time, I will close the public hearing, and it's now available for the Board of Commissioners to discuss.
Need a motion?
Motion to approve. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion on item F? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Subsection or section G, subdivision ordinance adoption.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is our final public hearing this evening. It's for subdivision ordinance adoption, case ZTA 2020-0002, and I will turn it over to Ms. Rue for the staff introduction.
Hey, thank you. So we have been working on a subdivision ordinance here in Onslow County since 2015. And back in 2015, you all saw the value in updating and reorganizing our subdivision ordinance, which was originally put together back in 2003. And we've had some turnover. We had a change in a director. We had a small little hurricane named Florence, and then we had a pandemic. And so every time it seemed like this ordinance was moving forward, there was something that put us a couple steps back. But here we are, and it's prepared, and not only is it ready to move forward, it's also compliant with the North Carolina General Statutes 160D update, which I came and spoke to you about in a work session about how the state is merging the city and the county land use regulations, and all of our land use ordinances were going to need to be updated, so it's compliant there too. So, from what I understand, the original goals of this project were to reorganize it, make it easier to use, increase the efficiency, decrease the time it took to get a subdivision approved, to eliminate some of the discretionary standards, which make it hard to enforce sometimes or hard to hold up in court, to make sure that it matched some of our other policies, particularly some of the things that are always asked from through emergency services and some of our other departments, and also our community partners, and to make sure that it was something that was usable and also supported by our community. And so at the beginning, at the initiation of this, there was community outreach. In the middle of this, when the real meat was being done, there was more community outreach. And then last November, and then this January, we met with our, one time with our community partners, meaning utility companies and other agencies, and then 2 more times with people that actually use this ordinance, the public, the surveyors, the land use planners in the area, and made sure that we got buy-in from them. And so all of that is reflected in what we're bringing forward this evening. I could talk to you about our subdivision ordinance for 3 hours, but I'm going to hit the highlights and then see if you guys have some specific questions in the essence of time this evening. So our first thing was to increase the efficiency of the review process. Our staff, and you probably may not realize this, when somebody submits a subdivision to be reviewed to our office, it doesn't just land on one staff person's desk. It goes through a review process that we call the technical review process that includes 27 different agencies and departments within Onslow County to review this for their specialized area. And so by the time it gets through a staff review, the initial looking at it, the technical review committee, they come back, they take all of the input, and we're literally usually all around the same table, not lately, but under our normal process. And then it gets to a planning board because that's the way our ordinance is written, and we were questioning, why are we continuing to take this to the planning board when it had seriously been looked at by so many professionals in the review process? And so in our new ordinance, we're eliminating between probably 2 and 3 months of a review process by having this end at our TRC level and a permit actually issued by our planning staff. We've also eliminated those discretionary decisions. One of the trade-offs for more flexibility and efficiency was to replace some of the things that were left up to the planning board to decide and put actual options and lists in there for people to choose from and know these are the standards. And that's where this becomes much easier to apply and for people to understand. And of course, we had buy-in on those actual standards from all of the folks that you see up here frequently asking for rezonings and plan approvals. Quite honestly, they were all very involved. So moving forward with some design things, we've been having problems with family divisions where if a couple of kids or 3 or 4 people inherit a piece of land and then it's divided apart, we don't have any safeguards in there for what happens down the road because there weren't very concrete guidelines on, well, how do you access this? How do your utilities get to you? And this becomes a really big problem, maybe not in the next few years after you inherit it, but when somebody goes to sell it later, and then you've got a landlocked piece of property, and that's a huge problem. And we've worked to create safeguards to avoid that. We also have specific standards that have been established for flag lots. I've stood before you on several occasions just over the last few years talking about flag lots. So we have attempted here to make standards that you would really only make one when absolutely necessary. It makes it more difficult but doesn't prohibit it. Initially we were going to prohibit it. Our area partner said, maybe not so fast. Put some standards in for it and we'd be okay with that. Our fire protection measures. Cul-de-sac length has been reduced when fire hydrants cannot be installed. This is something that comes up from our partners at emergency services all the time. They are very concerned to allow that 1,200-foot length for a cul-de-sac without that water pressure down there. And so they have asked that in the absence of fire hydrants, that's been reduced to 800. We also have thresholds established for other public safety requests. almost every TRC meeting I've ever attended, and I'm sure land use staff would agree, somebody brings up, well, you've got all these houses out there and there's only one way in and one way out. And so we took this to the Fire Commission and they felt very strongly. They also, our emergency services director and his designees have participated in all these conversations, asked that we have two means of ingress and egress to areas at 30 lots instead of the current 50. And so that is coming forward in this recommended ordinance. We have standards for sidewalks. We're not requiring sidewalks anywhere. However, if you are in an area that's within a quarter mile of a school or a proposed school and you're building a subdivision, they are required. You also have an option to put a trail in instead. And we have private street standards, which our efforts in this area were to avoid the continuous maintenance issues that are caused when you have private streets and they are not upkept. And it's one of the most difficult situations as land use employees here for the county that we deal with, is having to tell someone when it's pouring rain and their road's falling apart, sorry, the county can't help you with your streets. We just can't do that in North Carolina. And so we have private street standards that make it very difficult to create a private street, and then a separate set of standards for your situations like apartments or commercial development where that may make more sense. But for residential subdivisions, public streets are required under almost all circumstances. And then we have our utilities. We certainly don't want to require everyone to have to hook into utilities. That's just not practical. However, there were some cases where we thought if you were in a certain proximity to an existing public water or public sewer, that you would have to tie in. And the way that is laid out, and we worked with our partners on this a lot to get these numbers right. If you're building 10-lot subdivision and you're within 200 feet, you're going to have to tie it to a public existing. Okay, so we're talking about Onslow here. And then you go up in the scale slides all the way up to, if you're over 100 and you're within 1,500 feet and you can tie in, then you need to tie in. Okay? And the last thing that was kind of a big change, and our IT department was advocating very hard for this, was to run conduit for fiber optic cable. And we took this to our partners and to our working groups and to our TRC, and they didn't feel that Onslow County was really ready for that kind of requirement and passing that expense along to a developer. And our planning board asked that we remove that requirement and then recommended this ordinance to you without it. So at our meeting on June 4th, the planning board got a presentation on this. They had an opportunity to ask a lot of questions about it, and there were 2 public comments in support of the ordinance after these modifications had been made, and they were made from Lori Morris with Parker and Associates and from John Pierce. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rue. At this time, I will open the public hearing for the subdivision ordinance adoption case ZTA-2020-0002. No one has signed up for this public hearing this evening, so at this time, I will close the public hearing, and now this item is available for the commissioners to discuss.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any questions?
Yeah, I'd say, Ms. Rue, we appreciate all the work you've done on this. We desperately need a subdivision ordinance. I thought that how you address private roads is very efficient and very necessary. And I like the idea that you've reduced the review process time. And the option for sidewalks is going to be good for Onslow County. So again, thanks for all the work, and it looks good.
Thank you. You addressed the concerns I had shared probably a month ago and got that cleared up, so there was no problems there, so thank you.
Any further discussion? Questions? Have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion for approval, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Family First Coronavirus Response Act. I think that's Mr. Clay Calhoun, our Senior Services Director. And before you get started, I'd like to say thank you for providing and putting together all the meals for the people in response to the coronavirus epidemic, where you helped with that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. My pleasure. Good evening, Commissioners. Onslow County Senior Services has received grant funding for the Family First Coronavirus Response Act from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services for home delivered meals and congregate nutrition program services. Funds must be expended on allowable Older American Act activities as defined within the Act, as well in accordance with state and local policies. The funds must be expended by the contract termination date of September 30th, 2021. A grant in the amount of $84,859 has been awarded to the county. These are federal funds, and no county dollars are required. I'm available to answer any questions the board may have. I respectfully request the Board of Commissioners accept the grant award of $84,859.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you again. Contract inmate health care, I think that's Ms. Laura Jones.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. The Onslow County Detention Center is required to provide adequate health care to all the inmates, and the county's been under contract with Southern Health Partners since 2004 for these services. In March of 2020, staff issued a request for proposals for inmate health care. In addition, in an effort to reduce costs, staff also explored other options such as contracting directly with a nurse through like a medical staffing agency and utilizing telehealth or teledoc as an alternative solution. However, after considering all options, it appears that continuing to contract with a healthcare management provider will be the best solution that will meet all the state requirements. The county received proposals from 3 companies, Southern Health, who is our current provider now, Medico Correctional Healthcare, and Diamond Pharmacy. After reviewing the proposals received, it's recommended that the contract be awarded to Southern Health Partners under the new contract terms and conditions. And under these new contract terms, certain services that were outsourced, previously sent out for outside medical services, will now be performed on-site in an effort to reduce the outside medical costs. It is respectfully requested that the board consider approval of the contract with Southern Health Partners for inmate health care services and authorize the chairman of the board to execute the contract documents on behalf of the county. And if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
A motion?
So moved.
I hear a second. I have a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ms.
Thank you,
Jones.
sir.
Item C, North Carolina Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services Cooperative Agreement. That's Mr. Dave McCole, our Finance Director.
Good evening, Board of Commissioners. The item we have for you is an agreement with the North Carolina Forest Service, which assists with protecting and managing North Carolina forests. The Forest Management Service includes writing, woodland management plans, forest fire control services, enforcing state laws, and participating in the Forest Stewardship Program. During the annual budget process, the Board of Commissioners appropriate $150,000 for these fire services. This amount equates to 40% of their total budget. It covers things as the ranger's salaries and expenses and other proper expenditures made in connection with this agreement. Reimbursement for the services based on actual amount spent. A cooperative agreement between the county agency has been provided to the county for consideration and approval. With that said, I ask that you respectfully request approval of the cooperative agreement with the North Carolina Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services and authorize the chairman to sign on behalf of the county. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you have on this matter.
Motion?
Motion to approve.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. McCole. Vocational Rehabilitation Services Cooperative Agreement. That's also yours.
Yes. Yeah, the agreement you have before you, it's providing services for over 40 years. A third-party cooperative program has been in place between Onslow County and the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. The division provides assistance to eligible county citizens with a range of disabling conditions in obtaining, preparing for, and maintaining gainful employment. This year, over 230 citizens will benefit from services such as counseling, physical restoration, training, assistive technology, and job placement and retention. During the annual budget process, the Board of Commissioners are awarded to nonprofit agencies that provide services to county citizens. For the fiscal year 2020-21, the county commissioners appropriated $19,000 for the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation Services. This equates to 21.3% of the local agency's budget. A cooperative agreement between the county and agency is provided to the county for consideration and approval. With that said, I respectfully request that you consider approval of the cooperative agreement with the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation Services and authorize the chairman to sign the agreement on behalf of the county and the county manager to sign as a third-party administrator. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have on this agreement.
Motion?
Motion to approve.
Have a motion. I hear a second.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Hearing none, carries by unanimous vote. I think, Dave, I think Old Dixon Middle School demolition project ordinance is yours also?
Yes. And as you know, in 2017, Onslow County Schools opened the new Dixon Middle School located in Sneed's Ferry off of Ridgefield Road or Avenue. The old Dixon Middle School is replaced due to the size, age, and cost required to bring the older sections of the old middle school up to current code and meet the instructional needs for increasing the student population. Onslow County has repurposed the usable sections of the former middle school for use by Dixon High School and removed fuel tanks on the property. The school system has received state and local approvals for the demolition of the unusable sections of the old Dixon Middle School. In June of 2020, Onslow County Schools received bids for the demolition of the unusable building at a cost of $345,000. The architectural cost related to this demolition project is $24,150, which brings the total cost for the demolition of $369,150. The price includes demolition of the unusable buildings and includes, but is not limited to, the roof, walls, floors, foundations, basement, all plumbing, mechanical and electrical components, exterior stairs, and some asphalt paving, concrete paving, and site utilities. The project will also include removing the disposal of hazardous materials. It's being funded from our Capital Reserve Fund. It's the Board of Education portion of the Capital Reserve Fund. And I must say, due to the proper planning of the Board of Education and the managing by Steve Myers, and the group that works with him, the school budget project came in under around $762,000 under budget. And so that's enabling us to afford this demolition because of that coming in under budget. And the rest of the proceeds will go back into the reserve for future school construction needs. With that said, I respectfully request approval of the project ordinance for the Old Dixon Middle School project and authorize the chairman to sign on behalf of the county. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you have on this.
Motion?
Motion to approve.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 6 is appointments. I'll turn that over to Ms. Russell for that item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Our first appointment tonight is for the Richlands Planning Board, the extraterritorial jurisdiction seat. The town of Richlands has respectfully requested that the Board of Commissioners consider Mr. Robert Daniel Gray and Ms. Carol Eller to serve as the extraterritorial jurisdiction representatives on the Richlands Planning Board. Both have submitted a citizen participation application. No other citizens have expressed an interest in serving on this board, and the applications are on file and have been certified by the clerk. This is for a 3-year term for both Ms. Eller and for Mr. Gray. The term would end June 19th, 2023. And at this time, I respectfully ask you to consider the appointment of Ms. Carol Eller and Mr. Robert Daniel Gray for this 3-year term to expire June 19th, 2023.
So moved.
Have a motion, I hear a second.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Section B, Board of Adjustment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is also for Richlands, but is the Board of Adjustment for the extraterritorial jurisdiction. The town of Richlands has respectfully requested the Board of Commissioners consider Mr. Robert Daniel Gray and Ms. Carol Eller once again to serve as the extraterritorial jurisdiction representatives on the Richlands Board of Adjustment. Both have submitted citizen participation applications, and those are on file and have been certified by the clerk. No other citizens have expressed an interest in serving on this board. These are 3-year terms that end in 2023, and at this time, I respectfully ask you to consider the appointment of Ms. Carol Eller and Mr. Robert Daniel Gray for this 3-year term to expire in 2023.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I hear a motion and a second. Any discussion? I just got one question. It's okay for them to serve on both boards.
Yes, sir.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Swansboro Planning Board, Extraterritorial Jurisdiction, ETJ.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Again, we're going to talk about extraterritorial jurisdictions. This is for the Swansboro Planning Board. The town of Swansboro has respectfully requested that the Board of Commissioners consider appointment of Mr. David Moore on the Swansboro Planning Board, serving as the extraterritorial jurisdiction representative for a remaining 3-year term expiring on January 31st, 2022. Mr. Moore has expressed an interest in serving and has provided a citizen participation application. It's on file and has been certified by the clerk's office. And at this time, we do respectfully request that you consider appointment of Mr. David Moore for this remaining 3-year term, which expires January 31st, 2022.
So moved.
Second. I have a motion. I hear a second.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the appointment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Onslow County Alcohol and Beverage Control Board.
Yes, the next, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next appointment is to the Onslow Alcoholic Beverage Control Board, the ABC Board. The ABC Board oversees the sale of distilled spirits and the daily operations of all ABC stores within Onslow County. They enforce the laws and the rules of the state of North Carolina. Mr. Gary Dixon's term expired on June 30th, 2020. Onslow County ABC Board has respectfully requested that Mr. Dixon be reappointed. He has expressed an interest in serving and has provided a citizen participation application for consideration. This is on file and has been certified by the clerk's office. In addition, the Board of Commissioners is responsible for appointing the chairman of the ABC Board annually. Mr. Dixon was unanimously recommended to serve as chairman by the ABC Board for a 1-year term to expire on June 30th, 2021. At this time, we respectfully request that you consider the reappointment of Mr. Gary Dixon for a 3-year term expiring on June 30th, 2023, and also that you consider appointing Mr. Dixon as chairman of the ABC Board for a 1-year term expiring June 30th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, is that a motion for appointment of Mr. Dixon?
Yeah,
and
for the chairman
him
and
being
for the
chairman?
appointment back onto the ABC Board.
Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Onslow County Board of Adjustment. I think we got ballots for that. Some of the
Yes, sir.
commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All of you were provided ballots earlier for the Onslow County Board of Adjustment. The Onslow County Board of Adjustment is governed by the terms of the Onslow County Zoning Ordinance and also by North Carolina General Statute, Section 153A-345. Currently, there is one vacant seat. In the at-large alternate category, Ms. Christina Asbury and Mr. Kyle Fountain expressed an interest in this categorical seat and submitted citizen participation applications for consideration, which are on file and have been certified by the clerk's office. No other individuals expressed interest, and at this time, I will collect the ballots and tally up your votes. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Kyle Fountain has unanimously won the vote for appointment to the remaining three-year term, which would expire January 31st, 2022.
Mr. Fountain's in the audience also. Kyle Fountain's there in the back, and thank you for putting in an application, Kyle.
Okay, next item is Onslow Hospital Authority Board appointments, and we have ballots here from the commissioners.
Thank you, sir. Our last appointment also involves ballots, which you were given earlier, and I will collect those momentarily. It's for the Onslow Hospital Authority Board. The Onslow County Hospital Authority, at its regularly scheduled meeting on June 25th, 2020, voted unanimously to forward nominations for consideration for reappointment or initial appointment terms that will expire on September 30th, 2020. Of note, the following board members are not seeking reappointment when their terms expire: Vanessa Irvin, Sarah Wiltgen, and Dr. Todd Fisher. The recommendations are seat number 2, William Darner; seat number 5, Joel Churchwell; seat number 6, S. Patrick Alford; seat number 11, Ralph Taylor; seat number 12, Barbara Janige. Mr. Brandon Mills is submitted as an additional name pursuant to Section 7 of the joint resolution. The applications for these citizens are on file and have been certified by the clerk's office. Ballots were provided earlier to the commissioners, and I will collect them at this time. Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, we have finished tallying your ballots, and your appointees to the Onslow Hospital Authority Board will be seat number 2, William Darner, seat number 5, Joel Churchwell, seat number 6, S. Patrick Alford, seat number 11, Ralph Taylor, and seat number 12, Mr. Brandon Mills.
Thank you. We'll move on now to item 7, which was the consent agenda. There was nothing that the commissioners moved to the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, if I may interrupt, we need to designate a voting delegate to the NCACC Annual Virtual Conference. Item G.
Okay.
I nominate Mark Price.
Second.
You okay with that, Mark?
Mark,
Oh, I'm sorry, Miss G.
I second that. Did you make a motion?
Yeah.
Second.
All in favor of the motion or any discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. I didn't mean to jump the gun there, but it's been a long night.
Been a long night.
Anyway, there was nothing moved to the consent agenda. We'll move on to item 8, which is manager's comments. Ms. Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, and I will be brief. One note on the census, if the public has not yet filled out their forms, it's important to know that beginning August 11th, people will be coming door to door. And if you would like to avoid the knock, it's very important that you go ahead, go online, and do your census now so nobody comes and knocks on your door if you'd prefer not to have that happen. I'd also like to give a COVID-19 update. Unfortunately, it's been another difficult day. We have some bad news today for sure. We have had our 8th fatality today in Onslow County from COVID-19, and our thoughts and prayers are with that family. We also had a number of new cases. We had 8 over the weekend. We had 35 new cases today, for a total of 628 positive COVID-19 cases in Onslow County. We're around 8,491 negatives, and we do have 679 tests pending, roughly, tonight. We are continuing to do everything we can to prevent and diminish the spread of this disease. Those 8 fatalities were often asked about different characteristics of folks who have lost their life. There's only certain things we can give in respecting their confidentiality, but I can tell you that 6 of the 8 have been over 60 years of age. 1 was between the age of 50 and 60, and 1 was between the age of 40 and 50. And we just encourage everyone to continue to follow the guidelines that have been recommended to reduce the spread of this disease. We will also have, the Onslow County Health Department will host an immunization outreach that's coming up. A lot of folks are behind on immunizations with their children. That's July 25th and also on August 8th at CHS. And we encourage you to reach out, look on our website, and make sure you call for an appointment. And one more quick note, our landfill on Meadowview Road will have the scales being repaired. 1 scale will be repaired on Wednesday the 22nd and Thursday the 23rd. We do expect some delays on those 2 days, and we apologize, and we'll get that fixed as quickly as possible. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners.
Thank you, Ms. Russell. We'll move on now to commissioner comments. I'll start with Commissioner Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate everybody being here tonight. All the comments, it's good to hear from our citizens, and I'm not going to hold us up any longer. Thank you.
Commissioner Foster.
I won't hold us up either. Just appreciate everybody coming out, and at the same time, just to keep in mind the Representative John Lewis, who passed away, civil rights leader and representative from Georgia.
Thank you. Commissioner Knapp.
Everybody doesn't want to hold anybody up, but I do want to speak on something that I feel passionately about, and I want to say it from the heart, and I'm probably going to upset some people, but that's just the nature of the beast. In 2016, I was elected county commissioner, and I was elected to speak what was on my heart and speak what I felt was right. And today, I heard a lot of people talk about the monument on the courthouse, okay? Every person that came up, I respect. Every person that came up and spoke what they spoke, I respect their opinion. But the problem is that all I heard, and I continue to hear, is the good side, the positive side of the Confederacy. I'm not against the Confederacy. I'm from the South. I'm from North Florida. My dad's from Louisiana. But every time we get into a discussion about the monument, no one brings up the past, the horrific past of what the Civil War did. And to me, you can't have one side and not have the other. And I feel passionately about that. The monument on the steps of the courthouse is a war monument. If you look at the veterans cemetery here where my mother and father are buried, the Confederate soldiers are separated from the other soldiers and sailors and airmen. Why is that? Why didn't they bury them together? They cordoned off a section for the Confederate Army, Confederate whoever, to be buried there. I love the South. I'm conservative as the next person. But because of the fact that that monument is on the courthouse, that makes a lot of people who are minorities or anything else skeptical of the fairness that they will receive. You may not see it. Some other peoples may not see it because you're not a minority. Okay? I'm a retired federal law enforcement of 27 years, and I believe in equal justice and equality for all. I don't think we should have any monuments on state property in terms of the Confederate War. That's just my opinion. That's not a Democratic viewpoint, Republican viewpoint. That's a Robin Knapp viewpoint. I don't believe in destroying monuments that exist now. But I believe in putting monuments where they need to belong. In a museum, on recreations of the battlefield that they do every year. I've talked to a Confederate historian from the South who believes the same way that I do. When you hear one side of the story about what the Confederacy means, doesn't mean that someone else has the same viewpoint. And I want people to understand that and understand where I'm coming from with this. Because I've struggled with this. I know in my heart what I feel is right. And I know that after I say what I say tonight, people are going to probably get mad at my opinion. As a conservative, they're going to say, well, he can't be conservative to think that way. And I can turn around and tell you, yes, I can. Because I believe in what is right is right. I respected these people, but every time something is brought up about the Confederacy, no one brings up the dark side that is supporting keeping those statues there. For example, United Daughters of the Confederacy. Have you done your research? Have you really researched this group online? They were tied to the KKK for many, many years. In 1870, a federal judge or a federal grand jury declared the KKK a terrorist group. But yet you have the United Daughters of the Confederacy associating with them. In fact, they wrote a kid's book back in the turn of the century in 1914, somewhere around there, praising the KKK. Now, the good people of Onslow County, I moved here 30 years ago, and I love it here. I'm an Onslow County resident. This is my home. My wife's from North Carolina. We've got roots here. But I don't want it to go unnoticed that everything that we talk about the Confederacy, which was a part of our history, is always good. We look at our history in World War II, and what do we do to the Japanese Americans? We put them in intern camps. And the Nisei Battalion, which is a Japanese American battalion, was the most highly decorated unit fighting Nazi Germany during World War II. But yet we put Japanese Americans in internment camps. That's part of our history. But we don't have monuments showing that these people stayed at this internment camp because that represented an ugly part of our history. I'm not even Japanese, okay? But that bothers me as well, that we would do that to our own American citizens. So when I talk about this, I think we need to have a serious discussion about this as commissioners. to talk about this particular issue, and I really seriously think we should consider the pros and cons. When I became a commissioner, I was elected to represent all the people, not the Republicans, not the Democrats or the independents. I was voted to represent all the people. As many people come here to support keeping that monument, there is just as many, if not more, that want that monument removed. And not just minorities either. So I'm speaking to you from the heart because I listened to this and I battled with this. You know, the Confederacy is part of our history, guaranteed. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the wars that were fought. I believed on some of the issues from both sides. They fought for what they believed in. But I don't believe that a monument like that, a war monument with cannonballs on top of it, should stand on a courthouse. If anything, there should be a monument of Lady Justice wearing the blindfold. That's what equality is about. And that's my personal opinion. That's Robin Knapp's opinion. It's nothing more than that. It's just something that I had to say because, quite honestly, I get irritated with people professing one or the other. I just want to do what I feel in my heart is right. And that's just how I feel about it. And just keep in mind, before you talk about certain things, do your research. Read your history. I'm a history buff. I know Mr. Price is a history teacher. And some of the things that they did on both sides during the Civil War were terrible. I get that. This is 2020. We're not being overly sensitive or we're being weak because it doesn't take much to move a monument and put it where it belongs, in a museum. Put it at the cemetery. Because I personally, after reading about the Daughters of the Confederacy, I have no respect for that agency whatsoever. That's my personal opinion. Do your research and read about it. I'm going to tell you this quick little story, too, and this just happened in Onslow County here recently. A lady was driving through a rural part of Onslow County. She suffered a blowout, a flat tire. She got out of her car, she had her cell phone, she had no cell service. She walked about a quarter of a mile and passed the house with a Confederate flag. She kept going because it scared her. She goes another quarter of a mile, there's another house with a Confederate flag flying in front of it. She passed the house. She finally got to the third house with no flag, knocked on the door, and the people there assisted her, changed her tire, and the lady even asked her, said, why didn't you stop at these other houses? You got to these houses before you came to mine. And her response was, they had the Confederate flag. It scared me. And I didn't know how they would react to me. That's sad. She decided to drive back there a few days later, and apparently that neighbor that helped her talked to the other neighbors because the flag's no longer hanging in their front yard. And my point is, the symbolism of the Confederacy affects people differently, and you need to respect that. And I do respect that, and I just feel that we should remove that symbol, that war monument from the steps of the courthouse, and we should enter a serious discussion. Other than that, I thank everybody for coming. I just wanted to share that with you. That's just from my heart to yours and what I feel. I hope you can respect that, as I did the others that spoke on what they believed in. And I hope you guys have a safe trip, and we'll see you at the next meeting. Thank you.
Commissioner Price?
Thank all of you who spoke this evening at the various public hearings and provided some information for us in the public comment period as well, and gave us some things to think about. I'd also like to thank the Board of Education for dealing with the complex issue of the opening of the schools. They were dealt not a very good hand with this Plan B that requires 50% attendance. And in my mind, it looks like a logistical nightmare. But they did seek public participation in a survey, and they did listen to what the public had to say, and they grappled with this issue at the meeting. I went to one of the meetings, and there was a great deal of debate and discussion, and I just I think they've got a tough road ahead, and I wish them luck with all that planning and logistical preparation and getting the schools open, which is in everyone's best interest. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Mr. Shanahan.
So I just want to thank everybody for being here tonight and for the people who are watching at home. And appreciate all of my fellow commissioners, and we got a lot of work done today. And the county's better off for what we've done here tonight. And so I just appreciate all of you. Be safe, be kind to each other. Thank you.
Vice Chairman.
Thank you, everybody, for being here, and have a safe trip home.
Thank you. In lieu of the late hour, I would recommend a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.